All right, hello, Programming 12. We are now going to be adding some weapons to our characters. Weaponizing the project is surprisingly fun and I enjoyed it a lot. You're going to have to add in a little bit of your own code today. You're probably going to have to add in your own bullet code. But you're going to be able to shoot stuff by the end of this video, or at least be given some hints on how to do it. And also, we're going to try and set it up so that we can have a variety of different kinds of weapons. So I'll take you through some basics, some foundational code, and then we can expand on those ideas as part of sort of your contribution to the project. I still haven't fixed my darkness, but I don't care because I want to talk about weapons right now, so that's good. So here's the story. You're going to make a weapon class, and we'll talk about what this is going to have, but most of this code is not new to you. It's just we haven't put it into a class before. This used to be just part of our ship code, but now we're going to stick it into a class. And the reason is because we want to have a variety of different ways to shoot. This could be like magic spells, so you could have all sorts of different kinds of, projectiles that come out of you. Maybe they're a spread of them, or maybe there's like a single one that's super powerful that you charge up. There's all sorts of different varieties of things. Or maybe these are actually like guns, and you can have a machine gun versus a sniper rifle versus a whatever it is. It's your choice on what the fiction is behind these, the flavor of these, but essentially we want to have different styles of projectile firing mechanisms. So in my hero, let's take a look at the hero. So we have a weapon that has now been added to the hero. It is an instance variable, and you can, in your while you're testing it in your constructor, you can just add a new weapon. Right now, I have different kinds of weapons, but we won't have that yet. So we'll just put in a new weapon. And let's go through what a weapon is and then what you do with it. So first of all, a weapon has these following instance variables. And this is very much like asteroids. So we have a shot timer and threshold. And those two things are going to be what produces our rate of fire, right? Threshold is how many frames you need to charge up your gun before you can fire a bullet. And shot timer keeps track of how much you've charged up. Bullet speed is going to be a new thing, and we're going to actually be able to add a whole bunch of interesting new properties to these weapons to make them different. So one of them is going to be bullet speed, and I'm putting it here as an example for you to build upon, but later on you might want to put in a bunch of different features. Maybe there's colors for the different bullets you're going to fire. Maybe there's an image that shows the type of weapon that you have. All sorts of possible interesting features that I'd like to see, you guys work on. So I'll leave that blank for now. So I have those variables. So here's my constructor. I make a shot timer that starts at 0. The threshold is 30, and it's got a bullet speed of 5. And I have another constructor here that later on we'll use. It is a constructor that sets the shot timer to 0, but then the threshold and bullet speed, I'm not sure what PS stands, projectile speed, whatever. I kind of don't like that. I'm going to make it BS. That's got a kind of funny ring to it anyways. So those parameters will allow the outside of this class to define these things. It's customizable basically. So I can make customizable thresholds, which will change how quickly my gun shoots, and the bullet speed, which will change how fast my bullet moves. So then I have two functions here. I have an update function, and I have a shoot function. So these are not show and act. You might later on add in a show if you want a graphic for your weapon to appear. This kind of type of thing would be from like Soul Knight, where you have a little gun that shows up on your character, or depending on your character class, like different things show up on top of your character. I'm not going to do that right now, if at all. So this will be the real important nuts and bolts of making the shooting work. So basically, update is just constantly ticking up the shot timer, and there might be other things we need to add in here as well later on. But this is basically what the important part is. So just always increase the shot timer. And we'll call update from the hero to get the gun to update. And then the shoot function will happen again we'll call it from hero, and it will be what happens when we press the button, whatever that is, whether it's a mouse click or whether it's a spacebar or whatever. We'll call this to fire the bullet. So we'll check to see if shot timer is greater or equal to threshold. So in other words, we've charged up our gun. And then we'll calculate an aiming vector. So the aiming vector is just a vector using sort of that logic from asteroids, where we're trying to aim at the UFO bullet at our spaceship. Instead of aiming a bullet at a spaceship, we're going to aim at a mouse pointer. So our mouse pointer is going to act as sort of the aiming mechanism. So I just subtract the target X and the aimer X and the target Y and the aimer Y to get my new X and Y components for this vector. And we can go back to asteroids if you want to see the math behind how that works. It's all just kind of Pythagorean theorem, really, when it breaks down to it. So that's going to give me sort of my run, and this will give me my rise. This vector is way too large, though. So what we do is we set the magnitude of the aiming vector to the bullet speed, so that will scale it down. Or I guess if we're really close, it'll scale it up. But mostly it'll just scale it to the correct speed that we want the projectile to fire in. And then we're going to make a new bullet and add it to our objects list. So notice my bullet class. I'm going to send it a vector. I'm going to send it a color. And I'm going to send it I don't know what that is. I think it's a size. Pretty sure it's a size. So my bullet will copy this vector, and it will set its color to this, and it will set its size to this. So I'm not going to actually show you the bullet class. You have seen the bullet class before, really. It's in your asteroids project. It's going to extend the game object, right? How else could we add it to my objects? And its constructor will have those three things. Otherwise, it's just going to move, and when it hits the edge of the screen, it'll explode. So those will be things that you need to create yourself. And I bet you can do the bullet class. I bet you know the details for that, especially if you look back at your old asteroids project for some inspiration. But don't forget to make these changes. In some ways, do you have to do it by sending the aim vector? Well, there's probably some other ways to do it as well. So I'm not concerned as long as you get the bullets to aim, that's the best thing. I think this is a good way to do it. Last but not least, I set the shot timer back to 0 again, so that the the weapon has to recharge all the way back up to threshold, and that's that. So how does this work? Well, remember, it's all being contained in hero, really. We have this weapon variable in hero, and we instantiate it or create a copy of it in the constructor. So then in our act function of hero, we have to do the weapon management stuff. I don't know. Here we go. So here we have our weapon updating. So we just tell our weapon to update, and then I say if space my weapon dot shoot. So that's what gets my gun to shoot. This is what gets my gun to update. And that's going to happen every frame because it's in my act function. So every frame we're updating our gun, and we are checking, if we press space, and we'll try to shoot. Notice that if we try to shoot, but we're not at our threshold, notice that our shoot won't work. But it's the shoot function that sort of controls that. Anyways, all that kind of adds together with a bullet class to create a lovely shooting mechanism here. Pew pew. I really want to have some kind of pew pew sound. I think that would be awesome. So you're going to be a little bit, not quite able to do this without doing a little bit more work. And in our next video, we'll take a look at making additional kind of guns. How is it that you can make a new gun so that I could, presumably, oops, sorry, I guess I need to go to hero. So that I could presumably say something like, instead of a new weapon, I could say new sniper rifle, or a new ice beam, or whatever kind of weapons you want to create. That would be really fun to be able to do that. And then eventually, instead of doing it in our constructor, when we find that gun in the game, then and we like have a collision with it, if we touch it, then we can actually, you know, instantiate it and change our weapon in the middle of the game. We could even have lists of guns. So instead of maybe having a single weapon, we might have an array list of weapons, and we can add a weapon to it, and maybe we can change our guns by pressing some combination of keys to move to the next gun in the list and get a new gun out of the list. So that would be a really fun thing to add in for the game as well. So I hope this is all making sense, and I hope you're enjoying it. And if you're not, then please ask lots of questions, and hopefully things go smoothly for you. Okay? Thanks, everybody.